What's up everybody, my name is Carl, and today I'm going to review Deadpool and Wolverine. Directed by Shawn Levy, this continues on from Deadpool 2, several years later, where we follow Wade Wilson, who appears to have gone through a midlife existential crisis, and seems to have struggled to find purpose. That is until the TVA recruit him to help save the multiverse from collapse. This involves uniting Deadpool with Wolverine in order to save their reality from an existential threat. Wade Wilson, Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds. Prior to this film, I was worried about how the MCU and Disney in particular were going to handle this character, especially with the explicit and sadistic nature of the character. However, I'm delighted to say that Ryan Reynolds is playing the same good old Deadpool that we all know, love, and are also shocked by. Wade's character arc in this film starts with him having an identity crisis and trying to find a sense of purpose and belonging in the world, until the MCU comes crashing in and he becomes Marvel Jesus. I definitely found a lot of Wade's humour to be very dark, explicit and on the nose, which was hilarious, and as consistent as the previous two films. Although I can't help but notice how much more cheekier it is, especially as the MCU's target audience is children. Kevin Feige was probably stressing out when watching the film. Logan, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman. Seeing Hugh Jackman return back as Wolverine was definitely a warm welcome. How great was he? I was also worried about this character prior to this film, as the last time we saw Hugh Jackman portray this iconic character was in Logan, which will probably go down as one of the best superhero films ever made. I was concerned on how they would deal with that, and I'm delighted that they didn't tamper with that legacy or character, as we are introduced to a new variant. Okay, well, I guess some might not like how Deadpool used Logan's corpse as a weapon against the TVA, but I guess you kind of have to expect that with that particular character and their sadistic nature. I'd probably give Deadpool a pass. Anyway, back to Wolverine and this particular variant who, despite being an X-Men, is not particularly well liked. Especially what he did in his world, which was let everyone down. I think Hugh Jackman had the best lines in this film. One of my favourite moments was where he called Deadpool out in the Honda Odyssey for being too much of a joke. I also liked how they gave this version of Wolverine a redemption arc to make up for what he had done in his world, as well as coming to terms with it, especially when Cassandra Nova gets into his head. Of course, the big thing about this character was the fact that we finally got to see him in a comic accurate costume, and how good did he look. When he pulled the head cowl down revealing the iconic mask during the climax of the film, my mouth was wide open in shock. What a cool moment. I also liked the reasoning behind why he wore the costume, a stark reminder of what he did and the guilt that he carries with it. Hopefully now he can wear it not in shame. Favourite sequences? There were loads of great sequences throughout this film, it's actually hard to even pick a couple. I definitely enjoyed the opening sequence of this film with Deadpool dancing to Bye 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 by NSYNC. The fact that they used that song in the context of what was going on was absolutely brilliant and probably lives in most people's heads rent-free. Not to mention, it's Deadpool saying goodbye to Fox, which was even funnier. I loved the montage of Deadpool trying to recruit different Wolverines, and we got the likes of the comic accurate short version, Patch, among others, but of course, Henry Cavill playing him, which, I'm not gonna lie, just looked good and felt kind of right. Like if Hugh Jackman didn't want to be Wolverine anymore. I mean, I think you might have a good choice there. I think the sequences throughout The Void were brilliant as we were introduced, or should I say reintroduced, to various Fox characters, such as Chris Evans returning to play the Human Torch. I had a feeling that he was playing him, but was so surprised to see him there. Not to mention seeing Sabretooth and that hilarious monologue from Deadpool. I think my favourite part of The Void was the team up Deadpool and Logan had with Elektra from the original Daredevil film, X-23 from Logan who was now grown up, Wesley Snipes who came back to play Blade for crying out loud, and of course the introduction of Gambit who was played by Channing Tatum. Might I add that we were supposed to have a Gambit solo film which was going to star Channing Tatum as the character. It was supposed to be released during the mid-2010s, but got cancelled. Boy, do we need this solo film now, because Gambit was such a highlight in this, and you can tell how much fun Channing Tatum was having playing the character. As well as loving Gambit, it was cool to be able to see Elektra, Blade and X-23 again. I think I have more memory of Blade and X-23 than Elektra, but still, it was great that they were used in this film. Not to mention that they were also fighting other Fox characters too, which was epic. The good points of this film: the cast and acting all round was brilliant. I liked how allowing certain Fox characters to reappear in this film gave them a sense of justice and giving those who didn't get a chance to finally shine. I want to briefly mention Cassandra Nova, played by Emma Corrin, who was one of the antagonists of the film. I thought she did a pretty good job of playing this villain, who of course came across as very cold, calculated and stoic. Cassandra definitely is a force to not be messed with. I mean, she literally peeled the Human Torch's skin off and exploded him. Yikes. The use of cinematography and editing was used really well in this film to emphasise scale, certainly with Alioth and the Void, as well as the intense action sequences which were very fast paced and slick. I particularly liked the Deadpool and Wolverine fight and the moment where Deadpool reloads his guns. Reminds me stylistically of the first Kingsman film. Visual effects were pretty good in this. I didn't really notice any poor quality, which is an improvement over the previous MCU projects. There may have been one or two moments that weren't great, but again, it's pretty minor stuff. I definitely enjoyed the character dynamics of Wolverine and Deadpool, and finally getting to see them interact and partner up together. I think it was a long time coming, but it was certainly worth it in the end. I also enjoyed the multiversal aspect of this film, which I felt did a better job of it than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which should have been like this, but with more horror aspects than comedy. The bad points of this film: I'd probably say that despite this being an overall satisfying watch, I did feel as if certain scenes felt rushed into slightly. Perhaps scenes were edited down for time, which I guess makes sense, but could have added more to the film and even development of characters. If you are not a massive fan of constant usage of profanity in films, then this might not be for you, as there is pretty much explicit language used in every sequence. So if you plan to take your kids, maybe be warned that it might not be such a good idea. I guess you could argue that, like No Way Home, this does play on nostalgia slightly, as well as evident fan service, which could make you think that certain scenes felt forced. I myself don't particularly have a problem with this, as the film is effectively giving the fans what they want, and if you give them what they want, then it makes them happy, and will be a win-win for everyone. So in conclusion, I would give Deadpool and Wolverine a solid 8.75 out of 10. I think this was a step in the right direction for the MCU. This film had a great cast, fantastic acting, and a great use of Fox characters. I thought Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman had absolute stellar performances of Deadpool and Wolverine and did a fantastic job of bringing these two iconic characters together. The technical aspects of this film were good. Good fast-paced editing, well choreographed fight scenes, and the visual effects were not too iffy either. I also feel like they handled the multiversal aspect of this film very well. It certainly has felt like they utilised this area better than Multiverse of Madness, for example. I would say that perhaps if you aren't such a big fan of constant explicit language, then you might want to consider watching something else. At times it could be a bit too much for people, and I guess not ideal for kids. Certain scenes felt like they could have been longer or added to flow into the next sequences better. It seemed as if things were edited down for time, but this in turn made parts of the film feel slightly rushed into. But I would have to admit that this is very minor. Another minor critique is the use of nostalgia and fan service. I think for myself, I didn't mind this as much because it made the film as an overall experience more enjoyable. But I could understand for certain people it might come across as forced and baiting fans who watched and liked the Fox films. So comment down below what you thought of Deadpool and Wolverine. Who were your favourite characters, what were your favourite sequences, and what rating would you give it out of 10? Like and subscribe and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!